what is that legacy your family wants to leave? What do you want to be known for? And how do you live it? I hate the fact that so many people in the United States wait to leave their legacy versus living it. Living your legacy is the most powerful thing ever because you could shape it in real time.
Today we gather with a new friend. George Corton is a guy that Lisa, who's my chief of staff, executive producer, who's with me today. We met George a few weeks ago when we were in Miami for all the activities in and around Art Basel. And we were both guests at a party that Solomon Partners hosted at a really neat restaurant. What was the name of it, George?
Contessa.
That restaurant? Really nice. I think it was part of a major food group, and they do a super job. There was a really, really nice restaurant, a nice private room upstairs. And we got in conversation with George and his partner, Laura, and we thought, George, you're in an interesting business, and you had lots of good things to say about the world you work in and how you advise your clients, and we just thought, let's continue the conversation and share it with our community. So welcome, George Corton.
So George, you're the founding principal of First Philanthropy. Tell us a little bit about it. I'm very interested to learn more because I know you work with several organizations, but what actually are you supporting? Are you supporting donors? Are you supporting organizations? Tell me a little bit about the firm.
The primary business of the firm is supporting families, family foundations, and helping them with being more intentional and having more structure around their giving. So we basically act as their pseudo-executive director on the foundation side. That's the main part of our portfolio, and that was really the desire to start. First Philanthropy we saw that there was kind of a void in the market with folks that had our experience on the fundraising side. So we saw a lot of different ways that people gave, how they gave, what they used giving for. And then we didn't really see many people in the market that were advising high net worth families from a place of neutrality. I think there was a lot of philanthropic advisors that sit within the ecosystem of a private bank. I'd argue that your private banker may not be totally aligned with your philanthropic interest, given that money has to go out to really make change versus it having to stay in under AUM. So we started First Philanthropy with that. It was donors of ours at FIU.
So to provide the same kind of services as they might be resident within a private bank, but without any agenda.
Exactly. We don't hold the asset. The asset could be held, it could be maintained in the private bank, could be maintained in a community foundation at a DAF or an SO. Any which way the family wants to maintain the actual charitable asset is fine with us. We do advise on what we think is probably best for that family and their goals, their philanthropic goals, but we don't hold the asset. We just serve as philanthropic advisors and help them structure and deploy and maintain that reporting and do real legacy building. That's really where their passion comes through.
George, what was your background before that you knew about this world and how your career path has been? I know you one of those great South Florida success stories of born of parents who migrated here from Cuba.
Yeah, absolutely. My parents came from Cuba to actually New Jersey. I was born in Union City, New Jersey, not far from New York.
Shocking. There's hardly any Cuban Americans in Union, New Jersey.
That was people don't know it, but that was it. I mean, it was that and Little Havana that were probably the most densely populated places of Cubans in the United States. But then quickly after a few winters, all those birds flock south. And they're like, no, can't do that anymore. We're tropical people. So I've been in Miami for 3 decades. Love the growth of the city, especially as it relates to philanthropy. My whole background is in higher ed philanthropy. I had 2 employers only in 20 years. It was University of Miami and FIU, the public university down in Miami where I went to school. And most recently, I served as the Chief Development Officer. So I was responsible for our fundraising, all on the private side, and our capital campaign. So we had a capital campaign about $750 million, which we closed in 2022 for $860 million. And when you don't have a hospital with grateful patients attached to it, that's a big number, because most of these mega campaigns are really driven by grateful patients and research on the med side, and we didn't have that. We had a new medical school without a hospital.
I didn't realize that. But that makes all the sense in the world, George. Yeah, I didn't realize that.
George, what sparked that, that feeling that you wanted to do something that was so meaningful and giving back? Did you have any experience prior to, college with philanthropic efforts?
Yeah, I was always had a philanthropic bend. When I was in college, I started my fraternity, Pi Kappa Phi at FIU, and we were one of the few fraternities that had an independent philanthropy arm. We weren't attached to an existing 501c3. We had our own in nationals called Push America, and it helped youth with disabilities. So we raised money locally and nationally for that. And I just loved the ability to link dollars with cause and impact. And at a young age, we didn't have much. That all of us came together to support youth with disabilities was really impactful to me. And I knew then that I wanted to do something in the space, but it's such a relative word, right? Fundraising. When the president of the university, who was my longtime professor and friend, Mark Rosenberg, tapped me to look into this space, I was like, what is that? And I didn't know it was a profession. And then fast forward to 2022, when we completed the capital campaign, a longtime friend that I met actually at the University of Miami, he was an eager student at the time, Jacob Hale, who started a real estate private equity firm, Westside Capital, tapped me to go work in the private sector. At the same time, I was helping him and his family start their foundation. So, and they were really young. Yeah, I'm still with him. First Philanthropy is part of the bigger ecosystem of Westside. We helped him start his family foundation, and I was really interested in that because they were really young, and I loved that. And I'm like, you want to start shaping your legacy now when you have young kids, because a lot of people wait, and I think they wait too long.
And there are so many lessons for their children to learn by being around that, and the decision making and the concern about other people, their measurement and effectiveness, the effectiveness of their giving and changing the cause that they're concerned about. I think there are so many good lessons for the kids through osmosis or as they get older through direct involvement to learn.
Absolutely. I can't stress that enough of having that next generation at the table and doing something a little bit formally with them, whether it's, earmarking a bit of the philanthropic budget to that next gen to say what causes matter and pitch, the Family Foundation board, those causes, have them be, and their philanthropic interests may not align with the Family Foundation's interests. They have different causes they care about, and that should be fine. But have them at the table. Let them see what generosity really looks like, because that's really what's fueling this country's charitable cause. It's individuals. There's a misconception that corporates and mega foundations are what's fueling philanthropy in this country, and it's not. 2/3 of the money given is given by individuals. So it's still very much an around the table family exercise, not a formal structured exercise like corporate giving or foundation giving. That represents 1/3 of the big overall pie. And the pie is big. The pie in 2024 was $592 billion that went to charity.
So are you helping these individuals, commit to a charity or build their own foundations, or a little bit of both?
It's a little bit of both. We recently, as you guys saw in our Basel in Miami, there's a new wave of wealth that's coming in from all parts of the world. We have to remember that philanthropy is very American-centric. The way we see philanthropy today.
Well, that was going to be my question. Is it any place else in the world that has the philanthropy as such a centerpiece of their social and cultural activities?
I would say that Europe is getting there, and in particular, obviously England is leading it. Australia is doing pretty well, but nothing like ours. This started with Andrew Carnegie and John D. Rockefeller. The way we see philanthropy today started there.
And Miami is the quintessential capital of Latin and South America, isn't it?
Correct. Absolutely. We have been for a long time, and that just continues as there's political turmoil in South America, which there always is. Just swap out a country. That top 1% comes to Miami. It's their safe haven. They have homes here.
They all have a second home there. It's their, unlike us in the U.S., they have to have a thought in mind about where do I escape to if I have to.
Correct.
So Miami has been that refuge place for all of the Latin and South American families who had means to say, if someday something happens and we have to skedaddle, let's make sure we have a base camp.
How do you research all of the foundations that are out there that are and nonprofits that are doing well? Are there certain ones that you've developed relationships with that you're able to advise on?
Yeah, if it's South Florida based, given that we spent, both Laura and I, our entire careers pretty much, other than, Laura most recently was the head of development for UConn, our careers, were always in South Florida. So you meet a lot of interesting folks that are in the space. So depending on, the interest, we'll link them through just our relationships. And we work closely with, and it also because we spent so much time in the space that our team, once we left FIU, went to run their own shops. So our team is pretty much spread everywhere. Goodwill of South Florida, who I think I told you guys a little bit about that.
Yeah, you made that introduction. We're going to meet with them. I'm thrilled to hear what they're doing.
It's so impressive. They're the largest employer of the disabled population in the southeast of the United States. And when you go there, you definitely don't have a dry eye because you see what they've been able to do. Their CEO, David Landsberg, the former publisher of the Herald, is so impressive. And he doesn't want to stop there. He thinks they need to double that employment, but they can't take on more employees. They have to go out there and train employers to take on this employee base to really solve for the 500,000.
We were so thrilled to learn about them through you and for you to make that introduction. We're excited to learn from them.
Very much so.
Before we leave your FIU experience, let's dial down a little bit on the whole college place. What you said in the very beginning is just ringing in my ears about how much easier it is, not easy, easier it is to raise money for an academic institution, especially when they're connected to a medical school and research center, because you have the whole grateful patient syndrome. You have people who want access. You want people to be actively involved with something that might be beneficial to them or theirs. That makes all the sense in the world. But you had great success at FIU without that. I wonder, though, what you're thinking about as you look at the demographic wave, as you look at the cliff of high school graduates. What say you about what's in store for a lot of these colleges that don't have the medical affiliation, don't have the strong engineering chops that people might be seeking out for themselves or for their children? Is there going to be a shakeout in the private college world in the years ahead?
Yeah, I can't imagine there not being with the wave of AI, this new industrial revolution that we're in, and people having such immediate access to information and knowledge, and institutions being notoriously slow at moving. That if your value proposition isn't bigger than just that degree, then I don't see how you withstand this what's happening right now. I just don't see it. I see if you're an anchor public institution in a geography like Miami, you have staying power. If you're a mega private, like in Miami, it's the University of Miami with a huge endowment, with everything you want in a university, the hospital attached, a great football program that actually advanced. Now going to go play Ohio State on New Year's Eve. If you don't have all of that, I worry about that. I think there'll be a consolidation of smaller privates. I think there'll be mergers in the market that really haven't existed before. But I think some will shut down. I don't see them having any staying power given all of this, unless they're willing to move quickly and adapt. And by adapting, I mean throwing away all the bureaucracy that exists in an institution to get anything passed. You want to introduce a new degree, you go through 14 channels, faculty senate, board of trustee approval, all that. It will take a good year or two. Well, that already changed. The world changed in a year or two. Like, what are you doing? Might as well show.
Yeah, especially these next couple of years.
And Lisa and I have been chatting with a bunch of recent graduated last spring from college, and they're really struggling to find opportunities. They can't get an interview. And Lisa was asking one young lady recently, what AI classes did you take before you graduated? She said, there weren't any available.
They have to do them on themselves, actually. Like, they go out and they seek their own AI workshops online and, educating themselves. And even now you see kids in grade school, high school, they're teaching themselves how to use AI because there's not a program built for them yet.
Lisa knows I've been bragging about my 7-year-old grandson who's building his business plan on ChatGPT to create a experiential community in his neighborhood.
Jim's very proud.
An adventure club.
Yeah.
What I'm proud of is because he's so interested He's a kid that's been diagnosed with ADHD, as I think everybody is now,
Mm-hmm.
and indeed he is hyper. But when you tap into something that really has his interest, he doesn't know that he's been teaching himself how to type. He doesn't know that he's been teaching himself vocabulary and mathematics, because he's just in pursuit of something he's passionate about, and de facto learning all these other things on the way. I'm just tickled about it.
No, I wanted to just further expand on the higher ed thing, because there is a value proposition for higher ed, and it's the ability to process information. We're not machines, and you see so many people go in and just use ChatGPT as the end all. But if you can't process that information and make a sound judgment call that this is accurate or needs to be tweaked, then what good are you, right? You're just a robot. And going back to my business, most recently, I did something with ChatGPT. We had about 54 applications for one of the foundations that we represent in Miami, and it totaled about 3.3 million. And I prompted ChatGPT with all of the things that matter to this foundation. It's higher education, it's at-risk youth, it's veterans, it's first responders, the geographies that matter to us, the profile, and we had all the information. We had the 990s and we had the grant application, and I put it in there and I said, rank these for me in fund, possibly fund, do not fund, and why. I really couldn't use it. I was fascinated by it, and we had very much structured proposals because we had built out the website for the foundation, and so it wasn't like it was just grabbing random information and trying to process it. It was very formalized information, and Goodwill was one of them. Goodwill applied, and it said, doesn't meet the geography. Well, it's Goodwill of South Florida, and we're a South Florida based one. I just didn't understand it. So the human eye is still really important. I don't think we're there yet. We'll get there, but we're not there.
Let's make this the best spring ever. Sweeten any day with rich baklava, chocolate delights, and other treats to share with the people you love most.
What the legacy should be helps shape your behavior in your day-to-day activities to be more likely to get to that goal outcome.
Amen to that. Mapping everything to that. What is that legacy your family wants to leave? What do you want to be known for? And how do you live it? I hate the fact that so many people in the United States wait to leave their legacy versus living it. Living your legacy is the most powerful thing ever because you could shape it in real time.
Can you think of an example, without either anonymized or not, about people who've lived their legacy?
I coined that with one of my best friends, who is one of the reasons I really started First Philanthropy. His name's Chad Moss, and we tell this story often. Moss from Moss Construction down in South Florida. We're sitting there at Garcia's on the river in Miami. If you know it, it's one of the legacy places of Miami. We were talking about, he was 45 at the time and built an amazing company with his father and his brother and his mother. And we were sitting there at the bar, and I'm saying, Chad, I really don't get why people wait so long to make a significant impact and leave their legacy versus someone like you that could just live their legacy right now and do something meaningful. And he's like, what do you have in mind? I said, you graduated from the construction school at FIU, and you always talk about that being the most important entity to change your life. I was like, why not name it, endow it, do something meaningful with it, give students opportunities that wouldn't have the opportunity to go to construction school, that opportunity through an endowed scholarship. And he's like, well, what will that take? And I was like, I don't know the number, but let's figure it out. At that moment, he said, I'm in, let's do it. What led after that was a year process with the family to structuring it. And still to this day, it's the largest gift given to the university by an alum. And it's his proudest moment. And what I didn't know is when he was announcing the gift at what it was our Torch Awards at FIU, which is the highest honor an alum could get, he had people in the audience that worked for Moss that he announced that with this gift, there will be endowments in their name, honoring their legacy, and in perpetuity it will happen. There was 3, and one of them was for someone came from the foster system, so that went through that system, a scholarship endowed for that. Other one was for women in construction, and the other one was just for construction students in honor of someone who really did a lot for Chad and the family. So those people were in the audience, and forever they'll have an endowment at FIU's name. It's so powerful, right? And And Chad lives his legacy every day. He meets with the director of the mall school every month, no matter what, and they talk about what's happening there. What do the students need? He goes to lunch with these students. And FIU has the most Pell Grant eligible students in the country. So those are people living below the poverty line. So a little bit does a lot, and that's some serious impact because of social mobility.
I'm just thinking about, you keep going back to your experience at FIU and the experiences that are happening there. How important is that social aspect of higher education, for an individual, for yourself, for example? It sounds like you started so many things when you were in school.
Yeah, I mean, it's what shaped me, right? I think that's what makes a university. It's the ecosystem. It's how and it's how you engage with it, right? And I always urge,
It's a lot more. It's a lot more than the classes.
it's so much more than the classes. I mean, I tell, my nephew's going to FIU next semester, and I was, with his father, and we're talking about, what to do when you're there. I'm like, don't be that student that just goes to class and goes home. I mean, that's your getting of higher ed is everything around the ability to engage, the ability to start.
You sound like me talking to my grandkids. Be a joiner.
Absolutely be a joiner, and absolutely be a finisher as well. Don't just start something and say I'm going to do it and don't do it. Do it and contribute, because you're going to get your network out of it. B, you're going to get experiences that you'll never have, and you'll get the opportunity to mess up when there's not much. There's not much casualty when you mess up when you're in college, right? That's when you should learn. That's when you should mess up. You're going to take that with you into the workforce, and you'll land in the workforce so differently. You'll be able to land and speak in public and engage, and because I fear this generation being able to sit in a corporate boardroom because they've been so attached to this phone that how are they contributing? I need to hear your thoughts. That's why you're there. That's what you get in college. That's what you get all of that in there.
You're in the whole world of impact and influence and training. So you're training your clients, bringing a part of the service you bring is training them to think differently about their impact and the influence they can have on the things that they care about, and include up to and including their own families. And I think that point you made earlier on is really, really well done. How is it you're a young guy? How do you sit there and talk to a family about their impact, their influence, and their future?
I think what we say is, what we do is we sit in the intersection of values, governance, because you need it, strategy, relationships, and time. And by time, I mean generations. So I say, what can we do to package all of this? What matters to this family when it comes to legacy building? And I need to know the why, the power of why. And there's that whole book on the power of why and that whole movement. Nothing more important than understanding the why when talking about philanthropy. And then how do you marry that with a real structure and a real philanthropic identity that you could help establish, you help mold, and then a giving philosophy. And by that, I mean, what do we really like to do? Do we want to seed ideas and walk away? Or do we want to seed ideas and bring others with us? What is it? Do we want to give to bricks and mortar? Or do we want to give to changing programs and changing lives? What do we want to count at the end of the year?
And those are very different psychological profiles, I would think.
Very, very different. We have a family that wants to give direct to programs, so no pass-through organizations, low overhead, and I stress there has to be administrative overhead. For an organization to operate and turn on the lights and hire and recruit and retain great people, there has to be overhead. It can't be zero. The organization has to operate, but there is a healthy line, right? The national standard is 25% or lower is the health of an organization. If 25% or lower is going to administrative overhead, and then 75% or more is going direct to programs and to cause, that's a healthy organization. And there's a lot of outside entities that rank these, GuideStar, and a lot of online platforms, and you could just Google literally an organization and it'll tell you how many stars, and that's just based on 990s. And by law, as a 501c3, you have to disclose everything. You have to disclose what you pay your top talent. You have to disclose what you're doing in programmatic. You have to disclose who your board is. All that is out there in the public domain. Same goes for family foundations. People sometimes create DAFs because they don't want everything disclosed. They don't want their whole giving out there. But if you have a family foundation, by law, you have to file a 990 at the end of the year, and that shows everything you gave to and how much is in the actual balance of the portfolio and how much you gave.
Let's talk about longevity for a second. There's so many philanthropic efforts that lose some momentum, right, as they're going through. How do you navigate, at least for your families, on which is the right approach?
Yeah, so there are a lot of passion projects that exist, and usually they're around the death of an individual. And you see a lot of nonprofits start because someone passed and you feel you need to do something to honor that person. And those, for the most part, they're great and they have heart, but they don't have sustaining power. They just don't, because time passes and people get busy. The person closest to that individual who passed will probably remain active. But everyone on the periphery gets busy and they stop engaging. So we really look at the health of an organization based on, and I hate to say it's longevity because there's some startups that are great, right? What's really fueling that startup nonprofit from existing, and who's behind them, who's on their board, and are they giving? I ask those direct questions. What percent of the board is philanthropically engaged with your organization? And if the answer is not 100%, then why are you asking us? We're not even on your board.
Yeah.
So I need you guys to be at 100% before you come to us. And I need to understand where the revenue is coming from, because as we saw in 2020, the pandemic hit, and nonprofits that were overly reliant on government grants, a lot of them shut down because they didn't have diverse revenue streams. And you look at the health of organization, are they funded? I'm not saying government funding is bad. It's good. You should not have it be your sole source of revenue. I need to understand where that money is coming from, what donors are giving to it, at what levels. You have an annual giving campaign. Is it robust enough? Then I'd be like, okay, that's a healthy organization. And then now let's dig into the work. But in the first swoop, I'm going to look at the 990, understand administrative overhead. I need to understand board profile, and I need to understand where the revenue is coming from. What percent is coming from individuals? What percent is coming from corporate and national grants and Fed?
What would be a healthy balance for an organization?
I think, it's very dependent on the work of the organization, because, I don't want to go out there and say a number, because, people that are working in the homeless space and the foster space tend to get a lot of money from government grants because, local governments and,
right,
and state governments and national governments, care about that space, health and human services.
You just don't want to be solely reliant on that.
I don't want to be solely reliant on that. I need to understand that there are donors behind you that are with you. And then, I represent private families. So you're asking us, I need your insiders to be all in with you. And then we could look at that.
Set the stage for delicious moments this spring, complete with gourmet food and premium wine. From the first sip to the last bite, you'll find everything you need to make family dinners and celebrations memorable.
And then how do you mentioned earlier on, sometimes the next generation isn't as invested in a mission or a cause. What do you do in that, that scenario where you want your legacy to keep going, but you need others to help go beyond what you're able to do?
Yeah, I touched on that a little earlier, and what I say to these families is create a fund. We're going to, for rounding numbers, there's $1 million that we're going to give in 2025. Of that million, let's use $100,000 to give to that next gen and give them an exercise. Usually around November is a good time. It's obviously Thanksgiving. It's Giving Tuesdays around there. All philanthropy is focused on the end of the year for many reasons, obviously. Tax reasons being one of them as well. And in the spirit of the holidays. And go to that group and say, you need to source X amount of projects and come to us. And it's a healthy exercise, and pitch to the board the projects you want to go fund. And you will be so surprised at what comes back and what matters to this generation. And then they have to be in sync as well. They have to have these conversations.
Yeah.
You can't just write a check. You got to be involved.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a family in Miami. Sorry to keep going to Goodwill, but the family did this, and the daughter came back and she said, she goes to a really elite independent school here in Miami, and she's big on sustainability. And she's like, what I want to do is fund a Goodwill bin on our high school campus, and I want to do a whole campaign around sustainability. and teaching these students the importance of not just throwing away your old clothes, but donating them, and what does that mean in the cycle of sustainability. And stuff like that will really impress you as the older generation. Like, wow, that was on their mind, and they did that much research, and they're going to ChatGPT like Jim's grandson, and they're building out a whole plan.
Speaking of, this is a little distraction tidbit, but Lisa, when we did our Women of Worth conference, I don't think it was this year, I think it was a year ago, Worth Media Group does a Women of Worth, and it's a wonderful group of obviously women who are involved in all kinds of fields. But there was one panel that was about the fashion industry. You reign from the fashion industry. What % of fast goods wind up in a landfill in what period of time?
Oh my gosh. Yes, I think it was 3 years ago actually, where they were talking about that, but it was super high. It was
It's like 70%?
Yeah, I wanted to say close to 80% or low 80s that ended up in the landfill.
In 18 months.
And so, this was an organization that was, refurbishing clothes in a way and making it very fashionable that people would want to invest in garments that have been re-engineered, but using previous donated items.
So, George, you're in the business of helping families to think through some tough but important questions. Part of that is helping them think through how do they involve the next generation in their families to get involved and to feel those passions. You're involved in helping them structure their businesses of giving so that they're sustainable and achieve the goals they want and have measurable outcomes and objectives. So that's an interesting business of helping people to do things that are non-business but in a business kind of way. Tell us about your business. What is your business? How do you make money? And what's your plans? What's success for you in your business in the next, say, 2 to 3 years?
Thank you for the question. I believe to answer the latter is measuring our deployment of philanthropy at the tune of over $100 million that we would deploy annually through the aggregate sum of our families and
of your clients,
through our clients, and to have real data around that. Right now, the way our business is structured, when we take on a family, we basically, as I said, serve as their pseudo executive director. So we charge a retainer. We charge an engagement fee and then a retainer. The engagement fee goes to that whole process at the beginning that takes a considerable amount of time, doing the whole North Star and the whole process. We do a whole signing ceremony on their foundation charter with mission, vision, pillars, impact, identity, and then we go to work. And the work will be, the retainer is measured on how much money we're looking to deploy. That will show the amount of work that we'll need to get there. And then there's some projects that we take on with families that some just need a little bit of help in getting started, and then they're going to take it on because they're going to give it to someone in the family, and that's fine too. So either or, but I think success will be measured by the tens of thousands of hundred thousands of lives we could change as a result of structuring giving in a very meaningful way. We no longer will just give to an organization without real metrics on the application. They got to tell us who is going to be impacted from this grant and how, and what does success look like for them. And I tell them, I'm like, it's not money. We're not going to give you money and walk away. We're your partner. I want to be able to link you to other, like-minded philanthropists and organizations that I think will like this work as well. We want to seed it. And one of the families, the Moss family, uses the multiplier effect. They want that. They want to have that. It's called the force multiplier. We're going to go out there. We're going to give you a $100,000 grant. $50,000 of that is guaranteed. The other 50 is match. Go find it. Go get a match for that.
Your clients at First Philanthropy, they're not all clients of Westside. It sounds like some are, but not all.
No, not all. No, not all. Some are investors of Westside, but no, not all. They're folks that have come to us by way of the families that we currently advise and said, hey, you guys need to talk to George and Laura. They'll help you. And as a result of that, they're all over right now. We have families in Tampa, Dallas, Atlanta, California, in the Bay Area, and all over, obviously, South Florida. But that's really, and it's become a very organic growth, and I love it because it's been just word of mouth with families that said, you kind of need to talk to them. And families, it's not that they don't have great philanthropic intention. They do, and they're super generous. It's that they really just don't understand how to structure it and deploy it. And I think for the families, it should be fun. The giving should be fun, not this hard part. Let us take that. Let us do the due diligence. Let us have the conversation. Yeah, giving should only feel good.
Yeah, we've done some research on that just within the business of 1-800-Flowers, why people give. And a lot of times they say that when people give, they feel healthier, less stress, a better sense
Well,
of
it's
well-being.
scientifically documentable in that you can measure the dopamine levels in two different centers of the brain when people are in the act of giving. It could be giving something tangible, or it could be giving of themselves, or it could be giving of their time in volunteering. But it produces the same dopamine reaction in the brain, which is a chemical reaction which makes you feel better.
So spot on. I used to always get from folks that really didn't understand what I did when I was in fundraising. They're like, oh, people just give because it's a tax write-off. I'm like, no, that's not the motivation. Obviously, that's a great benefit to giving in this country, and it incentivizes folks.
George, it's been a treat to chat with you and learn about the world of philanthropy and how it's shaping our culture, our society, how it impacts families and multiple generations in some cases in families. Thanks for sharing your knowledge with us today. Regards to Laura. I hope the new year is terrific for you, and that we get to interact more frequently in calendar 26.
George, if a family wanted to reach out to you, where should they go?
We have a website. It's pretty simple. It's www.firstphilanthropy.com, and in there's a email that's info@firstphilanthropy.com, or email me. It's my name, george.corton@firstphilanthropy.com, and we'll have a conversation.
Corton is Corton.
Yep.
And say hello to Laura for us. When you get to interact with First Philanthropy, you'll find out that there are two pretty faces. One is George, the other one belongs to Laura. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks so much, George.